Hey, how are you? I hope you're doing fine. Today I would like to speak with you about Flexbox. So let's have a look at this very simple example. Mine is basically a main and it has two children, a section and the side. And you can see basically that the main is a flex container, flex direction is set to row, and the flex items basically have some background and some flex shorthand property. Same for a side. So let's look a bit at this in detail. I hope you have Firefox installed, because Firefox, in my opinion, still has the best dev tools for debugging Flexbox and Flexbox items and to understand what the Flexbox algorithm is doing. So let's look at this. So basically you see here, when you click on main, you see it's a flex container and it has two flex items, a section and a side. And well, let's look at the section, start with that. So basically here, what do we say? It's a flex shorthand property. The first value says, is it allowed to grow? 1 means yes, 0 means no. So basically section is allowed to grow. Second one is about shrinking, flex shrink. It is not allowed to shrink. And flex basis, which is the third value here, is 700 pixels. Well, as you can see down here, okay, it's a section and the content size is 700 pixels, so it's also the final size. Why is it the final size? Because the content fits into the 700 pixels width. Well, what would happen if I would say white space, no web? Well, you can basically see that now no longer the content fits into this container of 700 pixels width, because I basically don't allow it to wrap. So basically it cannot go in a new line. So you see the content size is 700 pixels, that's what I specify here as the flex basis, but the minimum size is nearly 2000 pixels. And then the Flexbox container, the Flexbox item is basically growing, not a container, sorry. The container is the main. So let's put the white space no web out here. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing, let's look at the side. What do we say here? It's again flex shorthand property. It is not allowed to grow. It is allowed to shrink, and the flex basis is auto, which normally means it's basically adjusting for the content width. So what do we have here? We have content size of 456 pixels, and since we are allowing it to shrink, it shrinks down by 150 pixels and basically ending up at 300 pixels. And that's very nice to see, and as far as I know, no other browser is showing you this kind of information in this kind of nice visual way. So whenever you have a problem with Flexbox, it's not behaving as you expect it would be, or there's some weird bug, you might open Firefox and debug it there. It's really nice. Now, let's look again at the flex basis value. So we have here 700 pixels, okay. Let's do the following, let's change it, let's assume this is a page, and at some certain breakpoint we would say, okay, this goes from row to column or vice versa. So let's change this to column. Okay, boom, now everything changes, I hope you can still see that. And it changed, basically the section you see here, content size 700 pixels, final size 700 pixels. It's still looking the same from the Flexbox point of view, but if you look at the box model, you see that the element now has a width of 1000 pixels, which is the same as of the container, because I gave the container the max width of 1000 pixels, and it has a height of 700 pixels. So basically the flex basis value I set here is now the height of the flex item. Why is that? Well, it's important to know that the flex basis refers to the main axis of the Flexbox container. And since the container now is column, So the main axis is vertically. The flex basis now refers to the height instead of the width. And that's important to know. I was confused by that some times ago, and I didn't even know what's going on until I read in the specification, which I will also link below in the video description. But in principle, yeah, you need to know that. So for column-based layout, the flex basis basically refers to the height, and that's very important to know. And that's one thing. So let's change here the max width to something smaller, not something narrower, to 200 pixels. And say the flex basis now is not 700 pixels because it's destroying completely layout. Let's say it's 20 pixels. Okay, let's look again at the section. So you see something here, it says basis is this. So the content size is 20 pixels, so that's the flex basis value we give here. And we still refer to the height. But the final size is 220 pixels because it's the minimum size. So why is that? Well, it's the same as before with the whitespace no wrap. Per default, Flexbox is reserving enough space for the content to be shown. And since we have a lot of content here, which is Ipsum text right now, Flexbox basically reserves 220 pixels height to fit all the content inside. And that's the second important thing to remember. So per default, adjust the flex items main axis size to fit the content. So in this case, flex direction is column, so the main axis is vertically, and then basically the Flexbox algorithm is maintaining enough height to fit the content inside, and it doesn't change if I say here flex core is not allowed. It will stay the same. It's just showing it visually differently here, which is also nice. So basically the final size is 220 pixels, even if I don't allow it to grow. There are two exceptions to that. One exception is that you specify a min property of the min axis. So in this case it's about height. So if I specify a min height of something, then this is changed. So you see the content size is 20 pixels, which is the flex basis, and that's also the final size. And that's important to know. Let's change this to a higher value than the flex basis, let's say to 50 pixels. What is it doing now? Well, basically the same kind of thing. So the flex basis is 20, and the minimum size is basically 50 pixels. So this might sound a bit weird, but if you read the specification, it kind of makes sense. So with this min height or min width of 0, you basically say you're fine if your height is smaller than basically what it needs for the content to render inside. So that's one option to make sure that this flex basis is taken into account. The second one, which is more obvious, is if you have an overflow container. So basically if you say overflow auto, that means you will have scroll bars, you can scroll inside there. Then basically the Flexbox algorithm is saying, okay, the flex basis is basically where I start, and since the container is overflowing, that means I can scroll, the user can scroll. We don't have to assure that the content is rendered on block into the container because the user can scroll. So the container size doesn't really matter in the end. And that's also important to know. I hope this was interesting for you and helpful for you. In case you have questions, leave them down in the comments, and hit the subscribe button. See you next time. Bye.